I can't tell you how many times I've spoken on this, and I've been coming to the Housing Task Force, Minister, which you were instrumental in making sure we got the minutes of. And so when we talk here tonight about houses that are empty, we're doing so with the background of 15,580 people homeless, the highest ever. And I want to repeat the figure really, 15,580 people homeless, 4,775 of whom are children. And this government has taken pride in its policy. A jigsaw of pieces that add more confusion, that keep the prices of houses artificially high, that continues to treat housing as a commodity rather than an absolutely fundamental, basic unit of society, a home. And you clap yourselves on the back with no overall picture. And what Sinn Féin have done here tonight is brought a motion that's very practical. And honestly, if you had any sense, you'd agree with it, even for just the appearance's sake, because it's practical. It's asking that the turnaround of an empty house be 12 weeks with some flexibility. It's asking that we look at direct labour. It's asking that there be a report in real time every 6 months. Now, I said that's very, very practical, and I have no problem supporting that. And for the life of me, I can't understand how you have a problem. And we'll go back to this famous task force. And the task force was set up in Galway, announced in 18, set up in 19, Minister. We're now 6 years later, and that task force is still sitting. And all that's changed is we've got a different chair. And remember why it was set up? It was set up because there was an emergency in Galway in relation to housing, directly related to the government's policy, because they utterly failed to build houses. As Deputy Ahern said from the Social Democrats, he's perfectly right. I'd put it differently. I agree with them. There's an absolute prejudice inbuilt into this government and every government in relation to public housing, which is an essential part of the solution. And when you abandon that, you created an emergency, and that emergency gets worse and worse. And as has been said, the Housing Commission, which asked for a radical reset of housing policy, has been utterly ignored by you, except the piecemeal thing in relation to tinkering with the limits, rent limits. And they say at a minimum we need 20% of public housing. Utterly ignored by you. So let me look at the meeting of the task force. It's not the last one, but it's the last one for which minutes are available. And the new chair, and if I'm not wrong, he's a former General Secretary or a former economist. And let's see what he's saying, Minister. When you're ready, I'll read out what he's saying, because he's expressing his utter frustration. He's expressing his utter frustration at what's going on in Galway City and County. And I won't quote him incorrectly. I'll quote him precisely. And what is this man telling us 6 years after the task force was set up? For the next meeting, the chair requested a short document providing a story of the maps to include the following. What is going on in the housing market in Galway, both private and public? What is going on? Now, I imagine that was the most basic question and the first question that should have been asked back in 2019 and a report produced on that. And here we are in 2025. And we have waiting lists where people are waiting without any exaggeration, some of them up to 20 years, most somewhere between 8 and 15 years for a public house. And he tells us he tells the two managers what's needed, what is going on in the market, the usage of local authority land for housing purposes, what lands are not being used, the location of the land acquisitions, where are the main areas for private development, and where is significant development taking place, how many units are dependent on critical infrastructure, and so on, and funding. And he talks about resources. Now, this is, Minister, 2025, for an emergency housing task force are finally beginning to ask questions when the crisis has become absolutely out of all proportion. And so we look, what's happened? So we see the county, and we see Cararua, and Cararua, I Grílár na Gaeltachta, gan éon córa séiricas. Ní léon córa séiricas. Tá séiricas of I Golasja san Isca, san Ariga, séiricas of. Agus sin constach olwar cuasaí tithíochta, agus tá sé ráite go neamhhalamh ag an comhairle conda nach féidir lo tile tithe a thógáil de bhar aspa infrastructure. So níl seanstá laid go mai forbairt corrum I gceist ó híomh an conda agus ó híomh na carrach. Tuigeann tú é sin ara. It's impossible to have balanced regional development, balanced city and council development if we don't have basic infrastructure. So if we take one major example in Carrow, no sewage treatment plant, so no houses can be built. So when we go to updates on a regular basis, twice a year, and we pull out like pulling teeth without anaesthetic to find out what are the problems, we find out, well, absence of infrastructure. And then within the city itself, a city that's destined to grow, one of the 5 cities. And again, Minister, I'd ask you to come down and look at what's happening in Galway, because there is not even a sight of a treatment facility for East Galway. So the plan is for the Ordon to have 10,000, a population of 10,000. There isn't a sign of a treatment plant for that. And then we have 2 pipes under the Corrup estuary, down where I live in the Claddagh, and a report was done on behalf of Uisce Éireann to say one of those pipes, there's another more technical name for it, is in imminent danger of collapse. This is one of the major pipes carrying the sewage from East Galway out to the Mutton Island treatment plant, in imminent danger of collapse. Now, previously there, Minister Noonan was there, in the Green Party, and he took this seriously enough, but it went nowhere. We were told a misunderstanding that the engineer hadn't said that, and the engineer's report hadn't said that, so I went back and looked. And of course, that's the position in Galway. Now, I'm a proud Galwegian. I wanted to grow sustainably. I want to see development, but I want to see balanced regional development. I want to see a master plan in relation to the areas, the public lands. There's never been one. And so the harbour, which is public land, held in trust for the people of Galway, is going ahead with its own plan with premium housing on public land to keep the price artificially high. Kent Station, with something like 14 hectares in the city, has its own plan. No master plan. Do you know when I was there what I was told about that? The council couldn't afford to produce a master plan, and so they would let the developers do that. So we have developer-led development, and I say this openly at the risk of losing votes. We have developer-led development in Galway. We have absolutely no vision and no understanding of the challenges that we face in relation to climate change and in relation to flooding. We need transformative action in relation to Galway. We need to take it as a pilot city, a city of the future, to have an integrated public transport system, including light rail, and at least 20 to 30% public housing, so we can bring the prices of houses down, so we can treat housing as what it should be, the most basic requirement if we're going to call ourselves a republic and a democracy. Now, and you're nodding, and I know you're a decent man, and I know your heart is in the right place, but unfortunately, government after government has made the situation worse. It's a neoliberal ideology that's completely out of control, that's treating housing as something to be bought and sold with a huge profit, as opposed to the basic requirement so that people can take part in society and not be looking at insecurity of tenure. And so tonight, we're zoning in on one. At any given time in Galway, houses, the number is between 80 and 120. Some of them for 10 years, some of them for 5 years, and 2 beside my own estate for 3 or 5 years.